Hey there, I'm Jackie Ferris. This week on the 302, we are at the Corbett Sharp House in historic Odessa. History is coming alive in the pages of a new book that catalogs 100 of historic Odessa's 7,000 objects. If you're a history lover or a decorator for that matter, get ready. The 302 is about to fascinate you. Historic Odessa is very fortunate to have so many original artifacts to the Corbett Sharp House and its other properties, and now they're all highlighted in a new book called A Storied Past. I'm joined now by Debbie Buxton to talk a little bit about how this book came together and some of the really cool items that are in it. Debbie, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for coming and reviewing our book with us.
Well, this is really amazing. I mean, it is a beautiful, well laid out book with the history and all of the artifacts. Talk to me, how did we get the idea to do a book like this?
Well, the Historic Odessa Foundation has a significant collection of Delaware furnishings and Delaware-made objects, as well as objects that are regional to the greater Philadelphia, Maryland, New Jersey region. This was a center for craftsmanship. The finest craftsman probably in the state, cabinet maker in the state of Delaware, lived and worked in Odessa in the 18th century. It was the Janvier family of cabinet makers. Mm-hmm. And we have many of their original furnishings in our collection, and many which were commissioned by the people who built this house. So these objects were made here, they were used by people who lived here, and they never left this town for over 200 years, which is really extraordinary.
So you had to go on kind of, you had a lot of stuff in your possession, but you had to go kind of on a research expedition to try to pull in other things and catalog them. Talk to me about the process of just figuring out what you were going to put in the book and just bringing it all in one place.
The last really serious research that was done on Odessa was done in 1958. Mm-hmm. When John A.H. Sweeney, who was in the first graduating class of the Winterthur program in early American culture and was a curator at Winterthur, wrote his thesis about the Corbett House. And the name of that book was Grandeur on the Appoquinimink. Mm-hmm. And it was extremely well done and extremely well researched. Fortunately for us, because it laid the foundation for us to continue that work. But that was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And the collection had grown over the course of that time. And in addition to that, it had never really been seriously surveyed. Mm-hmm. We were a part of Winterthur Museum for 50 years. And of course, Winterthur has over 100,000 objects. So Odessa's, 5,000 objects were just part of a much, much larger mix. So we decided when the foundation took over that one of the goals that we would have and would be to do a full survey and catalog of the collection. And so we went to Philip Zimmerman, who has his doctorate in American Decorative Arts, is a decorative arts consultant, and considered really an authority, especially on Delaware cabinet makers. Mm-hmm. And he was the natural choice to research and write the book. So that's how we got started. But it was a long, drawn-out process. We spent 4 years researching the collection, surveying, photographing, and we selected 100 of the very best and most important objects to be included in the book.
Now, a lot of people might think it's a catalog. It is not a catalog. When you look, you see the various items that were selected, and there is a very vast history to each of the items, which is just amazing when you thumb through this. You're not only learning about the items that you guys have in your possession, but about the history. It puts those items in context.
It does. The book begins with, written in 4 chapters, which give the history of the region, the history of the town. It talks about the economy and the development of Odessa, the families that lived here and worked here within the town. So it gives you a full background and a full history before it even gets into the specific history of each object. And then it's broken down into furniture, textiles, silver. It's just wonderful. And each entry gives detailed information about each of those objects. And the other wonderful thing is that it's extremely well documented. Mm-hmm. It's well footnoted, and the reader can follow the footnotes on the same page as the object so that they can see where all of this information came from.
Now, this is not only a good idea for history buffs, but there are a lot of people out there who, think that they're, fancy themselves as decorators. So you kind of get an idea for the time. If you're going for a certain period in your home, or maybe you're a collector, this is the perfect book to check out, to have in your collection.
Yes, because it gives information about objects, their history, how they were used, and it's really sort of a telescope into what life was like mm-hmm. in the 18th century in this part of the world, in the Mid-Atlantic. Mm-hmm. Each of these tell a story. They belong to people. It gives you cultural and social information about the time, and it really puts all of that history into context, which is exciting for historians, but can also be just as exciting for anyone that wants to create that feeling in their own home. It's a great book for decorators if you're taking a look at sourcing objects for a specific house, or sourcing a specific style that you're interested in, because it spans a period of time. It's not just the 18th century. It carries the reader into the mid-19th century as well. And we continue to collect. This family is very involved here, mm-hmm. and objects from later generations find their way back into this collection.
Now, we're going to talk about some of the items that are in the book when we return.
My name is Dale Clifton from the Discover Sea Shipwreck Museum. We have lots of history here, but there's always something new on the 302.
Welcome back. We're at Historic Odessa talking about their new book, A Storied Past, and we promised that we were going to talk about some of the items in the book. And this is a pair of a chest of 4 drawers. Now, Debbie, tell me a little bit about the history behind these two. It really is an amazing story how you were able to bring them together, because they were separated for a while, right?
They were separated for many, many years, and it was quite an exciting story. And it all occurred by chance, really, during the research project for the book. We have a very supportive donor to Historic Odessa that was at a local auction, and one of the chests was put up for sale at the auction. And he noticed that on the back of the chest was a little label that said William Corbett House, 1772. And he purchased the chest immediately. And he called us and said, I've got this chest of drawers that has a little tag on it. Would you be interested in looking at it? And I said, absolutely. So he brought it right down. I called Philip Zimmerman, and Philip came down to take a look at it and authenticate it. And sure enough, it was the chest of drawers that was listed in William Corbett's 1818 inventory, which was the last inventory done at the time of Corbett's death. And many of his things were separated and given out to different members of his family. William Corbett was married 4 times and had 13 children.
Wow.
So things were descending down through the family. Because of John Swinney's research, we were able to go back and look at how this particular chest descended in the family. And we realized that it had ended up with the wife of a descendant of William Corbett who died, and no one knew. No one had
Wow.
any idea. So it was truly a stroke of luck
Absolutely.
that it came back to us. And we were very excited to have it. But the story didn't end there. In the course of our research, we realized that it had a mate, that there was a chest that was an exact match to our chest of drawers. And we began to take a look at it, and we went back to John Sweeney's research again, and it told us which branch of the family that the chest descended in. And we were able to figure out who might have it. We placed a phone call, asked, also a supporter of Historic Odessa, and I said, "Do you have any idea where the chest might be?" And she said, "Yes, it's in my bedroom." And I said, "Could we come and see it?" She said, "Absolutely." So the next morning, we knocked on her door bright and early. We came in to look at the chest, and in the course of examining it, we turned it over. And on the bottom of the chest, there's a chalk description signed by John Janvier, Cantwell's Bridge, with the date. The measurements were the exact measurements of the chest that we already had in our possession. And she said, "Of course you must have it."
Absolutely.
And so they came home.
That signature is in the book. You can see it down here.
You can see it in the book, yes.
It's amazing that a chalk signature would last this whole time. You think about, you know, all the furniture in your house, you know, you move it from here to there and it gets passed down, that signature remained intact.
You know, it's interesting because cabinet makers frequently signed, if they signed, and that's unusual. It's very unusual for cabinet makers to have actually signed their work. They didn't do it frequently, but they did do it occasionally.
Right.
And often they signed in chalk, which is very resilient. Now, sometimes it takes a black light to really be able to make it out. And, you know, we spend a lot of time studying it with magnifying glasses under black light and all of that to figure out what they say. But this one is very clear. It's absolutely very, very clear.
How do you preserve something like that? Once you bring it into your collection, I mean, is that something that you encase under glass or you fix it some way?
You just don't touch it.
Don't touch it.
You just don't touch it. And it rarely, and I mean, this is on the bottom of the chest. You'd literally have to turn it upside down to see it, right.
And that's amazing that you guys thought to do that. But I guess you want to see every single inch of it when authenticating
that's standard operating procedure for curators, and especially for Philip Zimmerman, who takes this furniture apart and really examines it closely, very closely, and, you know, spends a lot of time, you know, studying how it's constructed, how it's made, what the woods are, what the measurements are. I mean, a lot goes into the study of decorative arts.
Now, I also wanted to ask you about the chair that we have just off camera here. It's really nice. It's leather. It's got a lot of the, I'm not really sure what it's called, it's like a tack kind of. Tell me about that.
It does. Well, that chair was passed down through the Corbett family. It also is in the book. It's probably the oldest possession in William Corbett's family. It is a Cromwellian chair. It dates to about 1710. It's English. It's oak. And it also has a little plaque on the back of it detailing its history. Also, one of the stretchers along the bottom has a brand in it, EN, for, we believe, Eliza Naldane, who might have been the second wife of, or pardon me, the first wife of William's son, Daniel Corbett. So it actually may have come into the family through her family, you know, something.
I think it's really cool that, you know, they have the plaques and they have the chalk signatures underneath some of these pieces, because it's almost as if the people who acquired them in the beginning thought to themselves, I need to preserve this for generations to come. Is that the case, or were they doing it more for the value of the item?
No, actually, you're right, but it's unusual. You never really see this. This shows a very early interest in collecting to protect and create a legacy in a family. I mean, this is Daniel Corbett's son who begins this, and then it continues throughout that family. His daughter, Mary Warner, Also was put the plaque on the back of the chest of drawers that said William Corbett House, 1772. But that's unusual, and it shows a very early interest in preserving the history and legacy of the family, and also an early interest in collecting.
Now, there is so much more in the book and so much more that we're going to explore when we return.
My name is Bob, and I work here as a staff guide at Hagley Museum, and we thoroughly enjoy sharing the museum, the property, the grounds, and the family life that occurred here with folks on the 302.
And this is the sampler I was telling you about.
So this started the whole thing.
It did. It launched the project. This had been on a long list of projects that we had been considering. We felt that the collection was extremely important, and we really wanted to bring it to the public in a way that it had never been brought before. But this grew out of this sampler. Its sister sampler appeared on Antiques Roadshow.
Okay.
We were watching an episode of Antiques Roadshow, and the dealer compared the sampler he was examining to this sampler, which he said was in the Winter Museum collection.
Okay.
And of course, it was in the collection of Historic Odessa Foundation and was originally part of H. Rodney Sharp's collection. H. Rodney Sharp is really responsible for the first efforts of historic preservation in Odessa. And he purchased this for the Corbett House back in the 1940s.
That's really awesome. So tell me the story behind it. Is this something that someone, made, a young girl or a
Well,
married woman?
samplers were something that young girls of wealthy, educated families completed as part of their education. And a young girl was quite adept at needlework by the time she was about 12 years old. These were done, this one and its sister sampler were done by two cousins who lived in Massachusetts. And it is just a beautiful work of art. You'll notice the little buildings, the people, the animals. It's very animated and really quite beautiful, and it's in wonderful, wonderful condition. So we decided after we saw this that we needed to get busy looking for funding for this project. And we went to the McDonald Foundation, which generously supported the research project, the writing of the book, the publication of the book, and also a new online catalog which can be accessed through our website, so that anyone interested can go to the Historic Odessa website and search the collection. They can see this sampler along with many, many, many other objects, all that are featured in the book, and other objects in addition to that.
Now, what happened to the other sampler? Were you ever able to?
It was privately purchased. It was put up for sale, and it was privately purchased.
So do you find that you are, I don't want to say trolling antique historic sites looking for, mates to your objects? I mean, how do you, make sure if it's out there that you get it?
Well, it's often happenstance. It's often just luck, really. Yeah, I mean, it certainly was in our case.
Yeah, with the chest of drawers, the twins, a benefactor found that, right?
Had that benefactor not been at that sale, we would have never known.
Absolutely.
It just would have been lost to the wind.
So it was just perfect timing, great luck. So if somebody wants to take this book home, where exactly can they get it?
They can buy it directly from the Historic Odessa Foundation through our website or by calling our office. Our website is historicodessa.org, and our office number is area code 302-378-4119, or it can be purchased online through the publisher, Rowman and Littlefield, or other outlets where you purchase your books.
Now, is there a thoughts for a second book? I mean, because you have so many items, you couldn't get them all in the book, right?
Well, the book covers 100 of our most important items, but the catalog will eventually have all of our collection in it. Right now, we have 500 or 600 objects entered into the catalog, and that's an ongoing process as we continue to study the collection. Historic Odessa Foundation has a collection of over 7,000 objects.
That's quite a few
So
books.
we have our work cut out for us.
Absolutely. So do you have to be a member to go on and look at the catalog?
No,
Okay.
anyone can access it. Scholars, students, people just interested, it's right there for the public. And that's why we did it. We wanted to be able to bring this collection to the public.
Now, is the long-term goal to have all 7,000 objects on this in this catalog?
It is. Now, when we talk about 7,000 objects, we also have to understand that often you have a set of something. For instance, we have a fabulous set of Wedgwood creamware that has dozens and dozens of pieces to it.
Yeah.
That would be entered into the catalog as a single object with a list of all the pieces that go with it.
So you guys are constantly photographing and uploading. So if you're into watching the catalog, it's like new drops every week.
Right.
Excellent.
Right.
Well, Debbie, thank you so much for sharing everything that Historic Odessa has to offer. And there is so much.
Well, thank you very much for coming, and it's my great pleasure to share something I'm so passionate about.
Fantastic. We'll be right back. Oh, hey there. Are you enjoying our show about a storied past? Well, if you come to Historic Odessa, make sure you snap a couple of pictures and share them with us on Facebook. Now, here are a couple of other things you might want to check out. For more information on how you can buy a storied past or visit Historic Odessa, visit historicodessa.org. That'll do it for this week's episode of The 302. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, where you'll get content you won't get anywhere else. We're going to leave you now with some beauty shots of the Brandywine. Until next time, I'm Jackie Ferris. Tell them you saw it on The 302.